Welcome everyone to this week's Lunch and Learn. My name is Jazzy. I'm a health fitness specialist at the San Rafael location for Exos, and I've been working here for about 3 years now. It'll be 3 years in 2 weeks. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to be presenting as well as Luis. So I'm going to let Luis go ahead and introduce himself.
Hey guys, nice to be with you all today. My name is Luis Morales, and I'm also a health and fitness specialist. I've been with Exos for a handful of months here, um, and yeah, really enjoying it so far.
Awesome. So today we are going to be talking about sustainability in honor of Earth Day being today. So we're going to go ahead and talk about today sustainability and the connection to human performance. And then we are also going to touch on some food sustainability, and that includes things like gardening, composting, sustaining communities, and as well as food waste and sustainability as a whole. So that's the overview for today's presentation.
All right, so first section here, sustainability. Awesome. All right. And so now, guys, we're on to just a quick review of just the 4 pillars of Exos methodology. And so first one, we have mindset. As you can see here, it says achieving a state of mind that allows you to perform at your best. Also includes a mindset for success. And I'm sure we've all heard this before, you know, if you can accomplish anything with the right mindset. So that's what we think about mindset. Nutrition, put very simply, we could talk about nutrition all day, but food is fuel. Food helps us to prepare for the demands of life and helps us replenish when we are spent. Movement, incidental movement versus structured movement, basically your irregular movement, movement that we don't use a gym or equipment for, structured movement, more specific movement patterns. All movement is important for health. And in the words of one of my professors from school, if the body is constantly at rest, then it will rest. So get out there, stay moving. The last one, recovery. Work plus rest equals success. Sleep is super important for recovery and healing.
All right, so just like there are 4 aspects or the 4 pillars of human performance, we do also have 4 different aspects of sustainability. So those 4 kind of, I guess I'll steal some Exos lingo. The 4 pillars of sustainability are going to be energy, food, transportation, and waste. And just like with the 4 pillars of human performance, these 4 aspects do also all intertwine. So they all are going to be relating to one another, and they're all going to be just as equally as important as the last. So here for energy, this is the focus of our energy. So thinking about renewable resources, so not just relying on those fossil fuels, right? Light bulbs, right? What kind of light bulbs are we using? Are we using LED light bulbs? Are they fluorescent? How much energy do our light bulbs use? Just things to think about. And heating and cooling systems, if we are cold all the time like me, my heating bill might be a little bit higher than others. So paying attention to things like that, or like if we have the heat on, if we have the windows open, like making sure that's not happening, because that's a waste of energy. So just a couple of things to think about under that pillar. And then up next we have food. So this is kind of a broad thing, and I think this also ties really well into the waste category. But things with food, like where's it coming from? Are we wasting it? Are we eating all the food we're buying? How much water goes into the food that we're eating? The agriculture aspect of food, where's your what is the farm doing that you're getting your food from? Are they sustainable? in the way that they are rotating their crops and not just using the same crops every time. Things like that that we need to think about when we are getting our food, or is it organic or not organic? Things like that. Moving up to the next one, transportation. So right now, we're all kind of transporting ourselves a little bit differently. And, we can see that in the air quality. So this is, we want to be decreasing our emissions in everyday life, driving less, taking public transportation a little bit more. Under here too, the use of technology. This is kind of, what we've had to do right now. And, just kind of what we're doing literally right now in this moment. We're using Zoom, we're using that technology to kind of get that quote unquote face-to-face interaction. So those are those kind of things that we want to think about when we think about transportation. How we're moving from place to place. And, right now in this strange time with COVID-19, we are kind of, you know, using our feet a little bit more, and we are moving a little bit more to get to place. At least I know I am, and I am driving a little bit less. So things like that always will add up. And then lastly, we have waste. So this is things like food waste, personal waste. What are you doing with your plastic? What are you doing with your garbage? Are you recycling? Are you composting? This waste will add up. The landfills are, they're growing by the minute. So that's another thing we need to focus on when talking about sustainability. So those are going to be the four main aspects of sustainability. And like I said earlier, we are going to be mainly talking about food sustainability, but this again, they're all intertwined, so we will kind of touch on some other aspects as well.
Awesome. So now we're just going to talk a little bit about gardening as it pertains to, food sustainability. So, what is it? Gardening is defined by the practice of growing and cultivating plants in a garden. I also added horticulture, a term that I learned, which is a subsect of agriculture, garden cultivation and management mainly for crops and food. So just an ultra focus on growing food. And so how does gardening help? Promotes mental clarity, tranquility and healing, reduces symptoms of PTSD. It also reduces risk for obesity, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, heart disease, stroke, depression, colon cancer, and premature death. So a lot of really good things that we want to prevent there. A lot of those are due to a combination of physical activity, sunlight exposure, which lowers blood pressure and adds vitamin D absorption, and potential social interaction with other people actually has a big effect on that. All right, so benefits to growing your own. I think it's kind of a no-brainer when it comes to should we grow food for ourselves, but growing your own is really important. So improved air quality. Air quality can be improved by photosynthesis, and it's really important for urban areas which are dense with carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide production. Urban areas are also dense with a lot of man-made stuff, so not a lot of trees, not a lot of grass, not a lot of open space where there's just green to soak up that sunlight. Thermal radiation. So going directly off my previous point, plants absorb UV rays and don't generate excess heat buildup like man-made materials do. So this is really important. The more green we have on this planet generally, the less thermal radiation we will have. Less trips to the store. So pretty clear environmental and economic benefits from this one. If we're not, putting gas in the car and we're driving less to the store, obviously we're polluting less, we're saving money on the gas, and we just get to go and pick fruits and vegetables from the backyard. Very sustainable, not a lot of waste or pollution there. So large margin for savings. According to the Bureau of Labor in 2018, the average annual food expenditure per household was $7,923. So almost $8,000 there. A garden that is 10 by 10 square feet can produce enough fruit and veggies annually to cut that number down by $1,500 to $2,000, which is pretty significant. I know when I mentioned the 10 by 10 square feet, not everyone has that kind of space, especially in urban areas. However, community gardens are often large, and you can reap very similar benefits from them as far as the savings numbers go. Largest potential sustainable economic impact. So what this means is that when examined in comparison to other fields of sustainability, the potential annual savings from having your own sustainable garden is still higher compared to switching from a gas vehicle to an all-electric vehicle for transportation purposes, and switching from natural gas energy to solar energy to kind of power your home. So, over time, year in, year out, the sustainable food source has been shown to have the greatest impact on sustainability.
So, kind of going hand in hand with gardening, we have composting. So, composting is basically just having your organic materials that will decompose to be able to feed your garden. So, when we're talking about composting, I kind of wanted to give you guys some kind of tips on how to start your own compost. So, it's really simple. All you really need to start your compost is a 3 by 3 by 3 bin in your yard. So basically, that's just 1 cubic yard of space or a bin. I know ours at my parents' house is out in the garden, so it makes it easier to transport what we have in the bin to our garden for the soil because it's right there. And when you're thinking about what to put in there, you are going to want a balance of brown material to green material. So that's kind of what this picture represents, is some examples of green and brown material. So green material, things like food scraps, grass clippings, eggshells, weeds, and you can put manure in there as well. I know me personally, my family, we do a lot of fruit and vegetable leftovers, and yeah, that's and eggshells and coffee grounds actually are a really cool thing to put in there, but I guess that goes under browns because it's brown. So going on to the brown category, things like dead leaves, those are going to be a great way to get some brown material in there. And things like straw, wood chips, sawdust, anything that's dead. The combination of both of those is what's going to create the best compost. So green waste products are going to be things that create or that contain more nitrogen, which is going to give the protein to the micro little bugs that are in there that you want to feed. And then the brown one is going to be carbon. So that's going to be the energy for the little bugs that you want to give them. The ratio that you want to aim for is anywhere from 2 to 4 parts brown to 1 part green. So you want to have that nice balance because that's what's going to help it decompose a little bit better. And it's going to be really important that you kind of just layer it up like brown, green, because that's going to help with the airflow and get the right amount of moisture in there. If you have too much brown and no green, it's not really going to decompose as much, and as well, it's going to take a little bit longer. And then on the flip side, if you have too much green, not enough brown, it's going to get really soggy and gross. So it's kind of the little tidbits for what to put in your compost. Also, very funny story, and this is about 10 years ago. My dad, the firefighter, put the hot coals from the fireplace into our compost before they cooled down, and he went and took a nap, and our back fence caught on fire. So when you are putting things like wood chips or anything from the fireplace, just really make sure it cools down so you're not setting your backyard on fire like my father did. Um, and then the next thing on here, you want to just make sure you break anything up that's too big. You want a smaller surface area so it can decompose a little bit better. And you want to make sure it is staying moist. Like I said, you want enough moisture and air to make sure that it is decomposing correctly. And again, you want to make sure you're not only keeping it moist, but you want to make sure you're getting in there and breaking things up, not only to decrease the surface area, but you want to keep that bacteria in there circulating so that everything is decomposed to kind of create that nice mulch you want for your garden and for your soil. And the alternative here, if you don't have a garden or if you want to, compost without actually composting or you have no need for it, make sure you use that green can. It's there for this purpose to keep all of the, things that are decomposable out of our landfill. Just be a little bit more environmentally friendly there. And so there are a lot of benefits to composting, right? Like the first thing, you're going to get better soil for your garden. The more, your soil is going to be um, there's gonna be more bacteria in there, it's just gonna be a little bit healthier, and it's also gonna help you reduce your need for any chemical fertilizers. So putting chemical fertilizers in your food, your food's gonna uptake those chemicals. So it's not gonna be the best thing for you to be eating if you are using chemical fertilizers. So this is gonna help your soil be more environmentally friendly. It's also going to help you save a little bit money on said fertilizers because, you don't have to go out there and buy it. It's already there out of the food that you just didn't eat or, the tops of your carrots or, the ends of your zucchini that you put in there. It's going to, help you save that money, but it's also going to help you lower your carbon footprint. Reducing waste, that's a huge one. It's again keeping that food out of our landfills. And the last point on here, it is going to help build that resilience and that self-reliance because you're going to be able to create your own soil and use what you created in your garden. So gardening, yes, that has great benefits too. And this is going to add on to those benefits of being able to rely on yourself. You can grow your own food and you can also feed the food that you are growing on your own. So that's kind of a good, really good benefit that you can get that's more sustainable from composting.
All right. So, talking about sustaining communities for a minute. First, here we have nonprofit organizations, and I want to talk about a experience that I had personally during my tenure at the University of Nevada. I had the opportunity to internship or to intern for an organization, a nonprofit organization called On Common Ground. And On Common Ground. Their mission was to create a more sustainable food environment in Reno, Nevada, and they saw a really big problem with the access that people had to fresh produce and healthy food just in general, like it is around the country in urban centers. And they found a lot of creative ways to repurpose food and give people quality nutrition with a sustainable model. So a lot of it was taking food that was otherwise perceived as waste or stuff that other vendors couldn't sell, and creating almost something out of nothing that could really benefit the community. So what they started with was creating a big commercial kitchen where they processed all these donations from grocery stores in the community, um, and they found really unique ways to repurpose it in dishes, in sauces, in even soil for compost soil. So what they were trying to do is really make something out of nothing, and they really wanted to make access to healthy products for people who were disenfranchised. So I had a really good experience with them, even though it was just a handful of weeks. It was really cool to see and learn what was really possible with that population, especially because it was a really tough area that they were working in, and they were really focused on getting sustainable measures out to people who had no means previously. All right, so mobile grocers. So there's a couple photos here on the slides of the bus and the people in the bus. So mobile grocers are food trucks and buses that have been converted into mobile grocery vendors for the purpose of bringing fresh produce and healthy products to areas without any access to said products, or community gardens where they can grow their own. So towards the end of my tenure with the On Common Ground internship, they launched their own mobile grocery bus for efficient distribution to specific food deserts. So places where fresh food was not even barely available, like no Trader Joe's, no Whole Foods, none of that stuff. Um, And then lastly, community gardens. So community gardens I mentioned earlier, they're often found in, but are not limited to urban areas. Not everyone in an urban area has a big sprawling backyard where they can just create a garden. These gardens, community gardens, are often really large, and they're built to sustain multiple members of the community compared to personal gardens that sustain individuals and families. Um, these gardens share all the benefits with personal gardens, and they increase the chance for social interaction. So meeting someone, just talking to people as you kind of garden, take care of the plants, harvest the plants. It I think it creates a really great atmosphere for just connecting with other people in the community, and getting to know other people that have a like mind about keeping it sustainable and keeping, as much fresh fruit and veggies in your area as you can.
All right, so this is kind of the last portion of what we're going to talk about today, and it is food waste. Okay, so fun fact, I guess it's not really a fun fact, but 1/3 of the food of the world's food pot. Oh my gosh, okay, 1/3 of the world's food that they buy is never eaten. So that's a whole third of all the food in the world that is wasted. So this is, some ideas that we have on how we can better use our food without having to throw it away. So, first thing on here, transforming your leftovers. So, this is where you can play like you're in Chopped. You've ever watched the show Chopped? The main thing you need to do is transform the ingredients, right, into something different. So, this can be like taking your leftover meats and some vegetables to create omelet or frittata in the morning. I know growing up, we would have chicken one night and tacos the next night, and then we'd have steak one night and tacos the next night. So that's, another way that you can reuse that food instead of throwing it away, make it a different dish. Want to make sure that we're limiting our waste. So again, doing what we can to make sure that we're not throwing out food, and that we're buying what we need at the store, not just necessarily, oh, this looks good, I'm going to buy it, and then you take 2 bites and you don't finish it. So really making sure that you're buying what you need from the store. Um, Buying local as well as seasonal foods. So when I was reading up on some, different ways that we can eliminate food waste, it said that not necessarily buying local foods is going to have that big of an impact. Yes, you don't want to be buying food from all the way across the country because it is going to have some waste because of transportation, transporting the foods to your grocery store. But you also want to make sure that you are eating more seasonal foods, because those the foods that you eat that aren't in season, it is making that soil less usable in those other places, because they're just growing things to grow them because of the need. So instead of, just buying, summer squash all year round, maybe limit that to just the summer and then buy that winter squash more in the fall. And the next thing to look at is going to be organic versus conventionally grown foods. So organic, is it being grown without those pesticides? Um, but not only that, is it going to be coming from a farm that is rotating their crops and that they're farming sustainably? And this also can kind of go into, their labor requirements for, the farmers and everything. So there's a lot to think about with organic and conventional. And then, eating a little bit less meat. So if you were to maybe eat chicken instead of beef, that's gonna kind of it's can save about 13,000 gallons of water by switching to chicken one time a week from beef. So the water footprint of beef is really high, as well as the carbon footprint of beef is going to be a little bit higher than chicken. So, just a couple things to think about with that. Maybe adding in a meatless Monday here and there will always help. Next, using minimal ingredients. So there's a website that I really like to use called Minimalist Baker, and all of her recipes on her website are going to be either one bowl to make, or 10 ingredients or less. So the less you can use and the less you need to buy and the less that you will in fact waste, but it also will kind of maybe inspire you to make some different dishes with some different foods. And then the last thing on here, using more farmers markets. This kind of ties in more to local foods, but not only just using local foods, but supporting those farmers around you. It's really easy in this area to go to a farmers market and buy some either, grass-fed beef or some organic vegetables that are grown, right, not necessarily right in our own backyard, but generally pretty close to here. So just some things to think about when you are thinking about food waste and how to make, your daily meals a little bit more sustainable. All right, so that kind of concludes our presentation. Are there any questions out there?
Yeah, I had a quick question, Jazzy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So what was the name of that website that you said that lady has recipes? And I'm going to mute because the TV's on in the background.
It's called Minimalist Baker. So minimal and then IST Baker, BAKER.com. And then if you want some more sustainable recipes, we have posted some on our Slack channel today, and they are up on our Exos at Autodesk blog on Autodesk One as well.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, so if there are no other questions, that kind of concludes our presentation for the day. So thank you everyone for attending. And if you do have any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to either me or Luis. We're always available and happy to help.
Yeah, thank you guys. I hope everyone out there has an enjoyable Earth Day and gets outside at some point. It looks like it's a beautiful day outside.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Jazzy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jet.
Thanks, chat. Take care, guys.